Hi girls, how are you? Sorry I can't be there today, but this video will help you fill out your notes on page 3 of your noties and then be able to do some stuff from the textbook. So if you haven't got your noties open to page 3, then pause this video for just a moment and get them out. When you're ready, we'll continue. Got them ready? Good. So let's talk about simplifying ratios. Now it says here at the top, divide all terms by the HCF. Well, what does that mean? HCF is the highest common, and what do you think the highest common F is for? Factor. Which means that if, for example, I had, like we were doing yesterday, I had a ratio of 8 as to 10. Okay, 8 as to 10 is not in its simplest form because there's a number that can also divide into 8 and 10 at the same time. What is it? It's 2, that's right. 2 can divide into 8 4 times, and 2 can divide into 10 5 times. So basically, I'm just taking both sides and dividing everything by 2. Now 2 is the highest common factor of 8 and 10. It's the largest number that will divide both into 8 and 10. Now when you get it to this stage, 4 is to 5, you can't make it any simpler. There's no other number apart from 1 that will divide into 4 and 5. So the whole idea of simplifying ratios is to take numbers, divide by the number that is the biggest that will divide into both, and then simplifying it from there. In other words, you're trying to find the highest common factor. Now I know for a lot of us that's hard to do, so I'm just going to show you how you can use that on your calculator to make your life that much easier by looking at this example. It says, in a particular school, 28 out of a total of 140 Year 9 students ride bikes to school. In simplest form, in black, find the ratio of students who ride to the total number of students. Well, for a start then, what is that ratio? There is 28 who ride, and the total number of students is 140. So that's obviously not in its simplest form. Is there a number that'll divide into 28 and 140? Yes, there is. Now, if you're not sure what it is, best thing to do is to use your calculator. This will have a sharp calculator. That's the one that's recommended by the school and is sold in the bookshop. So somewhere along the rows of buttons, so before or just up in the row above the number 7, 8, 9, there's a number called an ABC button. It's about there. And you can use this ABC button to do lots of things involving fractions. Like in this case, if you had 28 as 148 and you wanted to put it in its simplest form, all you might do is just go to your calculator and type in 28, which obviously means hitting 2 and 8, and then hitting the ABC button, ABC, and then putting in 140. So again, 140 means you have to put in the numbers 1 and 4 and 0, or those digits, and then press the equal sign. Now, the display in your calculator, if it's sharp, might come up with something that looks like this. It has a 1, and then it has a funny looking R with a 5. Now that means that 28 of 140 is the same as the fraction 1 as to 5, or as a ratio just 1 as to 5. So that's taking 28 as to 140 and putting into its simplest form 1 as to 1 as to 5. Okay? Now if you have a Casio, it's even easier because there might be a button, not an ABC, but something that looks like an actual fraction-y thing. There's some fraction or some box over another box. Okay, well you can use the same thing for that. You press that button, put 28 at the top, 140 at the bottom, press equals, and it'll change it into a fraction, which you should write as a ratio. What about part B? Now B says the ratio of students who ride bikes to those who do not ride bikes. Well, if there's 140 in total and 28 of them ride bikes, 140 minus 28 is 112. So there's 112 students who don't ride bikes. So the ratio of those who ride bikes, 28, to those who don't ride bikes is 112. Now, again, pretty hard to see what is the highest common factor for 28 and 112. What's the biggest number divided into both of those? Well, you don't have to worry. You can use your calculator again. Sharp again, just put in 28, press the ABC button, put in 112 and press the equal sign. Okay, your calculator should give you this display. 1 with a funny looking R and 4, which means that it's a fraction of 1:4, or in a ratio in its simplest form is 1:4. Easy, eh? Make sure you do some practice using your calculator. It'll make your life that much easier. Now what about these ones? Simplify these following ratios. Now we said at the top yesterday that a ratio is a comparison of numbers that are in the same form. Sometimes you get ratios where the numbers are not in the same form, like in this first example. It says simplify the ratio 15 minutes as to 2 hours. Well, straight away you should be able to see, well, they're not the same type of numbers. One's in minutes and one's in hours, and we can't compare 15 as to 2 because they're not the same. They should either both be hours or both be minutes. Now it would be easier to change the hours into minutes. Now in 1 hour there's 60 minutes, so in 2 hours there would be, that's right, 120. So you've got the ratio 15 is 120. Again, you can look for the highest common factor, the biggest number that'll divide into 15 and 120. Now I know that is 15. 15 to divide into 15 once, and 15 will divide into 128 times. But you can use your calculator, remember. Use 15, hit the ABC button if you're using a sharp calculator, and then 120 and equals, and it should bring you back 1 with a funny looking R, 8, or you know that means 1:8. Okay, B is something similar. We've got 3 mils as to 3 liters. Now it's not as simple as 3:3, which is 1:1 in its simplest form, because they're not the same type of units. One's milliliter and one is liters. We have to be the same. They either need to be both liters or both milliliters. Now it's much easier to change the bigger unit, liters in this case, into the smaller unit, milliliters. Now there's 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. In 3 liters there would be 3,000. Now this is a pretty easy one to simplify. What's the biggest number that will go into 3 and 3,000? 3. 3 will divide into 3 once. 3 will divide into 3,000 1,000 times. Or again, you can use your calculator. 3 ABC button on your sharp calculator, 3,000, press equal. It'll give you one funny looking R 1,000, which is 1:1,000. Alright, C. Now, what about if we had fractions and we want to compare them as a ratio? I've got the ratio 2/3 as to 3/4. Well, this looks hard, but it's probably simpler than anything else. Because here's a little trick. If you have fractions like this, all you need to do to take the simplest form is take the two denominators, 3 and 4, and do some cross multiplying. What does that mean? That means I take this 3 at the bottom here on the left hand side and take it up to the top, where I multiply it by the number which is the top on the right hand side. So I'm going to end up with, on the top of the right hand side, 3 by 3. And I do the same with the denominator on the bottom of the right hand side, that 4, and I cross multiply it, which means that I'm going to take it to the top on the left hand side, where I'm going to take the 2 which is already there and times it by that 4. So I'm doing a bit of cross multiplying. Now when I simplify that, 2 by 4 is 8 and 3 by 3 is 9, and there you have it. That's the ratio in its simplest form, because there's no other number that'll divide into 8 and 9 except 1. So again, we cross multiply. We take the denominators and we swap them and multiply the number which is on the top on the opposite side. So in this case, 3, which is on the bottom of the left hand side, take it up the top and multiply on the top of the right hand side. And the 4, which is the bottom of the right hand side, take it to the top and multiply by the top on the left hand side. When we do that, we produce a ratio in its simplest form. Okay, now D is something similar. It's 1.5, a mixed number. We know about them, don't we? As to 2 as to 5. So again, I want to do the same thing that I did in C. Take the bottom denominators and cross multiply them. But before I can do that though, I've got to change this mixed number into a into a fraction. So remember how we did this previously? 1.5. How do I change that into a mixed number? Sorry, it is a mixed number. How do I change it into an improper fraction? I take the 2 at the bottom of the fraction and multiply it by the number at the front. And then whatever that is, I add it to the top. So in the case of 1.5, 2 by 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So 1.5 is the same as 3 on 2. Now on the right hand side, I've still got 215. But now I've got it in a way that, like in C, I can do the cross multiplying on my denominators. So this 2 at the bottom there, I'm going to take it up the top and multiply the 2 on the top right hand side. And the 5, which is down the bottom here, I'm going to take it up the top and multiply by 3 on the top of the left hand side. So on the left hand side, I'm going to have 3 times 5. And on the right hand side, I'm going to have 2 times 2. Now if we simplify that, what do we end up with? We end up with 15 as to 4, which is my ratio in its simplest form. Easy. Fraction comparing like this are easy. So if we want to simplify ratios, don't forget, if you're stuck for the highest common factor, if you can't think of the number that'll divide into both sides at the same time, use your calculator. And again, if you've got a sharp calculator, use the ABC button. And if not, Casio and others have other buttons that you can use for the fractions. Good. All right, now that we've done that, you are good to go for stuff today in period 5, like this. From exercise 6B from your textbook, you can do these numbers for me, please. Numbers 1 to 4, which are simple and dead easy. And then it gets a little harder. Then I want you to do these numbers from question 5, just the first 4 A to D. Okay, don't do question 6, but do question 7, just the first 4 A to D. And question 8, A to D. And question 9, A to D. Looks like a lot, but if you're using your calculator, it'll take you not long to do it. So that is your work for period 5 today. Don't forget your homework. It's still due on Tuesday of next week. All right, thanks for listening, girls. I'll see you next week. Have a nice weekend. Bye.